welcome to the Islay Whisky Academy Drams and storytelling session. Here we are with our hip flask and our lovely fire. Stories are always better told around a fire, and especially on the shore. So I'm just going to charge my glass, and I hope you will do the same and settle down while I tell you delicious a story. And the type of story I'm going to tell you tonight is a myth. A myth is a story that explains something momentous, like a creation myth. So this story is about my tattoo, but it's not really about my tattoo. But I'll start with the tattoo and then I'll go on with the real story. So I've always been fascinated with a type of art called Haida, or Haida, I might not say it right, art. And the people that make this art live in Northwest Pacific. Now that is a landscape very similar to ours here on the west coast of Scotland, because they're on the west coast of Canada. They've got peat, they've got inlets, they've got beaches like this, and the weather is quite similar. And the Haida people and the Tlingit, probably said wrong too, peoples are the people who carve the beautiful totem poles, and the style of their art is very, very unusual. Anyway, I was wanting a tattoo, and I was looking, this is years ago, and I was looking on the internet and asking people if they had any images of this style of art. And no one had, and certainly not tattooists. Tattooists had never really heard of this style of art. So anyway, after weeks and months of looking, I thought I'll just leave it with the universe, and I stopped looking. Anyway, this young guy booked on a tour, him and his girlfriend, so I collected them from Pibroch. He jumped into the car and I could see his forearms were tattooed with the style of the Haida art. But because when my people come to Islay, I want them to relax and enjoy Islay, and to let all the cares of their normal life fall off their shoulders. I don't ask them questions about their life or what they do or anything, but it unfolds naturally over the course of the time that they're here. So it turned out that this boy was of the Haida nation, and his job was a tattoo artist, and he was over here in Scotland and then going to mainland Europe on a tour, a working tour, to share his style of art and learn other people's style of art. So he couldn't believe my story when I told him, so of course he designed a tattoo for me. So I'll show you the tattoo later. Anyway, the tattoo is of this Haida myth, and it's the Haida myth of the light bringer. And in our patriarchal Christian religion, we have a light bringer too, but ours is Jesus Christ. But in religions, or in belief systems before monotheistic religions, we embraced the natural world a lot more, and we embraced the animals and the birds, and our creation myths came out of the earth rather than a patriarchal, rational God that's domiciled off earth in heaven. So anyway, to start the story, way back in time, when the land was dark, not like today with the sun in the sky. It was dark and cold, and we had no sun and we had no fire, and the human lived a pretty miserable existence. But Raven could fly high above the earth, and over the curve of the horizon Raven could see the light of the sun, and Raven could feel the light on her wings and the warmth, and she could see this beautiful light, and it made her happy. And she thought, if I could bring this light back for the humans, it would make their pretty miserable existence a lot nicer. So she decided that she would go and find the source of this light. So she flew, she flew, and she flew away over the Rins, away over Scandinavia, away over Russia, away over the east, away, away over, right round the earth, until she came to the sun god's palace. And she could see the light shining out the windows, shining out the smoke hole. Now Raven means all ravens, not just one particular. It's the raven family, if you like, that were the light bringers. So Raven thought, how will I get into the sun god's palace? So Raven decided to sit on top of a very tall pine tree. Now these Scotch pine or Scots pine are the very trees, the very tall trees that we use and larch for our washbacks. So this story connects in with dramming, slanter. Delicious. So Raven saw the palace, and it was in a clearing in the forest. And this beautiful river meandered past the palace. So Raven decided to sit in the top of a pine tree at the edge of the clearing and wait and see and think of a plan. So bear in mind, Raven's been flying and flying for days and days, doing all this for us. So then he sat on top of the pine tree at the very top, blowing in the wind, and waited and waited, hungry and tired probably, but waited and waited, and then the door opened in the sun god's palace, and out walked the sun god's daughter down to the river with a beautiful woven basket in her hands. She's going to dip down into the water, into the burn, gather some water up to drink. Raven thinks, aha! So just in that split instant, Raven turns himself into a pine needle and spirals down, 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 down in the air currents. And just as the sun god's daughter's about to drink the water, Raven drops himself into the water. She drinks the water, and she drinks down the pine needle. And then she goes back into the house. 9 months later, the sun god's daughter gives birth to a beautiful, glossy little baby with jet black colouring and shiny, clever, intelligent eyes. Who do you think the baby was? Of course, the baby was Raven. So Raven looked around the room, and in the corner he saw a beautiful box with the light and the heat shining out of the box. And Raven knew that he had to get the sun god to open the box. So Raven crawled around the room over to the box, and he went caw, caw, caw at the box, looking up adoringly at his grandpa. And the sun god couldn't refuse his grandson anything, so he said, "Open the box, show my grandson what's in the box, open the box." And all the advisors were very worried, because this was unprecedented. But show my grandson what's in the box, the sun god said. So someone lifted off the lid of the box. The light shone out. Raven went, peeked it, and his sharp, clever, intelligent eyes were nearly blinded. But Raven went, caw, 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 looking adoringly up at his grandpa. So the grandpa said, the sun god said, "Give my grandson what's in the box." So the advisors were very worried about this, but the sun god wouldn't listen because he loved his grandson so much. He wanted him to be happy. So the advisors lifted the shining orb out of the box. And just as they did that and walked over to where Raven was, Raven grabbed the light in his beak and flew up the smoke hole. Before they could do anything, he had the sun in his beak, and he flew up the smoke hole, and he flew, 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 carrying this heavy, beautiful, very, very hot orb in his beak, back until he came to the land where the miserable humankind that were us were huddling, trying to keep warm in the darkness. And when he saw us down below, he opened his beak and he threw the orb into the sky, and we felt warmth and heat, and light was brought to us. And that's what Raven did for us. Sláinte. Raven brought this light to us. Sláinte. Welcome back to the Islay Whisky Academy storytelling and drama session. So come away in, because I've got another story for you. Oh, I forgot, I was going to show you my tattoo. So see, there's Raven with the beak, and the sun. Isn't that amazing? So that style is Haida art style. Okay, this story is a fairy tale. Now, a fairy tale is a different style of story. It's like an Ardbeg and a Lafroig. They're both high calibre racehorses, but they come from different stables. So a fairy tale is more a story that would be a teaching story, or a warning, a story, you know, that would be a warning, a guiding story. What you have is you have motifs, and fairy tales, they are like a skeleton. So they don't fill in much detail, because the listener fills in their detail, and that's why you relate to a fairy tale. And that's why fairy tales can be archetypal, because they follow a similar path. So what happens is you have a protagonist, then you have an authority figure who is cruel or unjust. There's an unjust situation. The protagonist goes away and returns. They encounter magical helpers. They often receive magical gifts. There'll be a magical item that will help them. They resolve the issue. The bad person or bad thing gets dealt with, gets punished, and reforms and sees the error of their ways, and then everybody lives happily ever after. So fairy tales are very refreshing and that's why we tell them to children, because they always have a good resolution in the end. And if they don't, then it's not really a fairy tale, it's some other kind of story. So, charge your glasses. I've got a nice Octomore 9.1 here to go with this story. So this story is called The Old Woodcutter's Son and the Laird's Daughter, or the story of Pibroch. So it starts. Once upon a time, in a land far away and close to home, there lived an old woodcutter and his son. Their home was a small house deep in the forest. They worked hard but were poor. The wicked laird forced them to sell all their cut wood to him for a very low price. Some things never change. There was a legend about a beautiful white hind that lived in the forest. She was very shy and hid from people. The woodcutter and his son often glimpsed her as they went about their work. The woods folk knew the hind was special, and they tried to protect her from harm. One day the laird was out hunting deep in the forest, and he shot and killed the beautiful white hind. When the wood spirits heard that the silver white hind had been killed, they were sad and angry. The king of the wood spirits went to the laird's home. He took his Highland pipes and stood outside the bedroom window and played the most heart-stopping, blood-slowing, anguished lament you have ever heard. The hearts of all those who heard were so saddened that they turned to stone. People were frozen where they stood. But the old woodcutter and his son were working deep in the forest and didn't hear the terrible sound. They were so busy that the sound of the chopping wood filled their ears. The next morning, the old woodcutter's son saw a tiny, pure white fawn nestled below the leaves of a hawthorn tree. The fawn told the woodcutter's son that she had been alone all night. The fawn's mother had not returned for her at nightfall, as was her way. The fawn had been alone all night and was cold and hungry. The old woodcutter's son took the fawn into his arms and carried it home to his hut in the forest. The old woodcutter's son cared for the fawn. He fed it and gave it milk and made it a soft, warm bed beside the fire. One day the fawn ran off through the forest. The old woodcutter's son followed the fawn. After a time, they came to the gardens of the laird's house. All was quiet and still. All the people in the laird's house had been turned to stone by the sound of the terrible lament. The old woodcutter's son walked among the stone people in the garden. Spiders had spun their glistening webs between their outstretched hands. One of the statues was a lovely young girl. The old woodcutter's son fell in love with her. "How sad you look," he cried, touching the beautiful girl's stone hand. Grass and flowers did not grow in the garden. The land was frozen, a wasteland. The old woodcutter's son gathered the tiny white fawn in his arms. "This is no place for you," he said to the little animal, and carried the fawn out of the laird's garden and went back to his hut deep in the forest. After a while, the old woodcutter's son said to his father, "Father, now the laird and all the people around have been turned to stone, we have no one to buy our wood. We have no money. I must go out into the world and make my fortune." The old woodcutter was a wise old man, and he knew this was for the best. "Very well, my son," said the old woodcutter. "You go out into the world and make your fortune. Just remember to send something home to your old father whenever you can spare it." "Of course, father, I will never abandon you, and I ask you to never abandon the pure white fawn," the old woodcutter's son said, and off he went. The old woodcutter's son sailed the 7 seas and had many amazing adventures. He caught the winds from the 4 corners of the earth and put them in bags and sold them to sailors. He charmed the birds out the trees and gathered their fabulous feathers for fancy ladies. He climbed the highest mountains and found jewels in ice and sparkles in the eyes of queens. And he always remembered to send something home to his old father living deep in the forest. And the old woodcutter did as his son had asked and took care of the tiny white fawn. Years passed, and despite his amazing adventures, the woodcutter's son grew lonely for home. Many times he thought of the beautiful stone girl in the laird's frozen garden. "In all my travels, I have never seen a girl as beautiful as she," he said to himself. "Perhaps by now the enchantment is broken and the people and the land no longer frozen." The next day, the old woodcutter's son set off home to see how the land and the people had fared during his time away. The old woodcutter was very pleased when his son returned. The old woodcutter had used the money his son had sent to build a lovely new home deep in the forest. He was pleased to show his son what they had achieved together. "Where now is the tiny pure white fawn?" the old woodcutter's son asked his father. "She has grown into a beautiful silver hind, just like her mother," the old woodcutter told his son. His son was happy to hear this. "And what of the people of the laird's house?" the old woodcutter's son asked his father. "Are they still frozen and the land still barren?" "Yes, my son. No one can lift the enchantment," said the old woodcutter sadly. "The people and the land have paid dearly for the laird's transgression." No change there then either. The next day, the old woodcutter's son walked through the forest to the laird's home. He entered the cold and barren garden. He was happy to see the beautiful girl, but saddened to see her still frozen in stone. The old woodcutter's son gently stroked down her face and told her, "How beautiful you are. I thought of you when I sailed the 4 corners of the world. I wish I could lift this terrible enchantment and free you." The old woodcutter's son walked back to his new home deep in the forest, but there, in his path, stood the queen of the wood spirits. "We have a special gift for you," she said. "You cared for our special white fawn after her mother was killed by the laird. Without your care, she would have died. As a reward, we want to give you these." And the queen of the wood spirits gave the old woodcutter's son, the set of the magical Highland pipes. If you play a true Pibroch for your true love, she will hear and know that you love her, the Queen of the Wood Spirits told the old woodcutter's son. The next day, the old woodcutter's son returned to the laird's garden. He went to the stone statue of the girl. Looking into her stone face, he told her, I will play for you a true Pibroch, and you will hear and know that I love you. Into the silence of that frozen land, he played the most beautiful, hypnotic music ever heard. His deep, haunting tune, filled with love and longing, encircled the stone girl. Inside her frozen heart, she felt the love in the boy's tune. A wee teardrop formed at the corner of her eye. The tear rolled down over her cheek, then splashed onto her hand. It rolled down her hand and splashed onto her dainty foot. As her teardrops fell, the girl awoke. As the woodcutter's son finished playing his Pibroch, the beautiful girl was shaking out her hair and smiling. The terrible enchantment was broken. The old woodcutter's son took the beautiful girl in his arms and kissed her. All around, the land was freed from its weight of imprisonment. The grass and flowers began to grow again. The girl laughed joyfully to see her mother and the laird, her father, awake at last. The laird was very pleased that the old woodcutter's son had freed them from the terrible spell. The laird had dreamed deeply during his time asleep and had learned the error of his ways. He promised that he would be a true and kind man from that day forward. He gladly gave his blessing for the marriage of his beautiful daughter to the old woodcutter's son. The laird's daughter and the old woodcutter's son were married and had many children and lived happily ever after. And to this day, their descendants are known by their great talent for playing the Pibroch. Sláinte. I hope you enjoyed that story. Hello and welcome to your last two stories from the Islay Whisky Academy. These two stories are true. They're from Islay, and charge your glasses and I'll share them with you. So I've got here, it's Lagavulin Distillers Edition 2016. Lovely. Splendid. Splendid dram for telling stories with. Right. This story involves two gentlemen from the village of Portellin, and it's a way back in the day when pubs used to be, they used to open excuse me, at lunchtime, and they would close at 2:30 in the afternoon and not reopen again until 5. So anyway, that's no use because you just got a taste at 2:30. So they decided to set off. Now, I don't know where they were going. I don't know whether they had come through Bowmore and they're heading to Bridgend, or whether they'd gone the high road turned at Springbank and coming back to Bridgend, back to Bowmore. But anyway, they're at Penny Creek, right, which is halfway between Bowmore and Bridgend. And to protect their modesty, I'm going to call them Donald and Neil. Although, of course, that's not their real names. So Donald and Neil are in the car, driving round the corner, and the field there against the loch is just filled with geese. Oh, here, Donald says, wait and we'll get a goose for the pot. So he leans out the back of the car, picks up the 12 board, which of course would be lying on the back seat loaded, right? Leans out the window, slow down, he says to Neil. Leans out the window, takes a bead on the goose like that, right? Shoots. Geese scatter, feathers everywhere, hell of a noise. And just when all this kerfuffle's going on, round the corner, on the other side of the road, here comes the excise man. And he's like that, oh my God, he sees a gun out the window, the geese and everything like that. And he winds down his window and he's shouting, you're off your head, going like this in his head. And Donald and all the kerfuffle says to Neil, what's he saying? And Neil says, oh, it's all right, Donald. He's just saying that you got it in the head. Sláinte. Okay, hello. This is the last story to finish up your drums and storytelling session with myself, Rachel McNeil from the Islay Whisky Academy. So just a couple of things to tell you about previous stories. So the myth that you heard first, the one around the beach bonfire, this is a lovely book with the kind of Haida art, a bit stylised. This is like a kind of a children's storybook, but it tells more or less the story that I told you. So that's a lovely story of Raven. And the other thing is, if you want to read the fairy tale, it's actually one I wrote myself, and you can read it on the website. It's called onceuponatime.tales.wordpress.com. So it's on there if you want to have a wee look at it. Right, okay. To wind up the storytelling event, well, I want to thank you all for listening and watching for a start. And although it's been a very strange Feis with none of you here, I hope you've enjoyed it nevertheless, because I know that we've all enjoyed presenting for you. And tomorrow you've got our bag open day, and tonight you've got the main man himself, John McChain, doing an SMWS tasting, and you've also got the fantastic Bunnahabhain Distillery doing a tasting to follow this. So you're spoilt for choice tonight. So I'm just going to tell you a quick wee story to wind up the session. So it was many years back in Bowmore in the Harbour Inn. So the Harbour Inn used to be privately owned, and it used to be brilliant crack. And my friend was the barman at nights. I mean, this is like so far back. And they used to have musicians and singers, and everyone would be packed in, and it would be like this, you're like sardines. And believe it or not, they had a piano in there that used to get played. And so it was packed. It's one festival night, and the guys on the piano, blink, 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 blink away. And then the guys on the guitar, din, 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 whatever you do on the guitar, twang, twang. Right, and the fiddler, nothing happening. Lamont knew straight away. Down he went from behind the bar, round, outside the front door, out into the street, opened the window, fiddler put his elbow out. It was that busy, Lamont had to open the window to let the fiddler's elbow out. Sláinte.
Wishing you all the best for the rest of the year, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thanks very much from me, Rachel, at the Islay Whisky Academy.